It's not the season. Not at all. It's been bad.
There was like a electrical store that blew out.
Oh. He cut it. That's what he said.
And usually they had to fix it. They had to go and
I'm waiting to see how things
Hello, Mike. Is that my friend?
No, that's my This one doesn't. Oh, I'm Mark, I'm sorry.
Oh, it's Mark.
Sorry. He'll answer anything but late for dinner. No, it's a hungry joke. Boys your age, they got to be on this bottomless pit in their foot.
Slow down a little bit. I bet considering what you were like probably when you were a teenager.
I actually moved to St.
It catches up if you don't want it.
Heck yeah, it does.
You stop eating so much.
I'm 45, it's caught up. It's caught. Hey there, Mike.
How do? Excuse me.
Mike, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Great, thanks.
Hey, this must be reserved for me.
Yeah, there's a sign under it that says dig here.
that bread stops them. But usually they can, they weed it a little bit further down. But I think if I weed it right to the street, because I sprayed it, I'll get all the stuff. Once it dies, I'll weed it out.
All right, let's see if we can get our meeting started.
Yes. I make a motion to accept the minutes from May 11th, 2021, the regular meeting, and May 18th, our special meeting.
I'll second it.
Motion, one second, all in favor? Passes. Go to 11 and the 18th.
Yes.
And everyone looked at the first bills.
I just have a question of the city of Moscow. 2,500?
Yeah, that's the same that we always pay.
What is it for?
I think so. We have it every month, it's just reoccurring.
We pay Lake County and then the City of Moscow actually owns the transfer station.
Okay.
So I ran into Justin at Kendrick Ag, who's buying a battery for the pickup that we sold. I thought that was sold as is. Or is it just, it was bad?
Everything was dead on it. It was just set there too long.
What's the KME specialties?
Wastewater plant. We had, I don't know if it was a surge or what, but it blew out our relay on one of the pumps, and so they had to come down and run a jumper, then they had to order one, or make one, come back down, put the part in, and I had them do the floats while they were down there, so.
I move to approve the bills.
I'll second.
stand here.
Ready for me?
I'm ready.
All right. I have some things to hand out. Let's start with, I'll do myself, right? Do that first. This one second. Oh, you could have kept one for yourself, Don.
Oh, what's your name? I didn't know I got it. I'll just. Hand it out too fast.
Thank you.
There's a.
Okay, so, sorry it's not a flashy presentation, but this has a lot of good information in there. I just wanted to provide kind of an overview of what we're going to talk about here. But I've had several conversations with the mayor, Justin, Wendy. I think the last discussion we had was a couple of weeks ago, but just kind of talking about conversations that we've had with DEQ, USDA relating to Kendrick, and if that will become something that the City of Juliaetta gets involved with. To date on your wastewater treatment plant, since you guys signed a contract amendment for us in February, we have not been able to start yet because DEQ has not yet given the green light. They did send you a contract, a funding agreement to review, so that's what's waiting, was for them to get the contract to you, for you to consider it and sign it, and then after that, they'll give us the green light to get started. We didn't want to get started early because if we did, then anything we did up until the point that they gave their okey-dokey would have been unauthorized work, so it wouldn't have been reimbursable on the funding, and that's not something that we wanted to put on you guys. So the funding's there for that purpose. So that being said, when you read through the introduction, just kind of in a nutshell, both Kendrick and Juliaetta received permits in about June of 2018, about the same time, new permits for their wastewater discharges. Kendrick had recently undergone a large upgrade to their wastewater treatment plant, and when they received their permit, they found that they had 2 permit limits that their treatment plant was not yet set up to address, temperature and ammonia. The City of Juliaetta got a similar permit in which you got a temperature limit, so that means your wastewater has to be a certain temperature or cooler than a certain temperature before it goes into the Potlatch River during certain times of the year. And you did not get an ammonia limit though, because your treatment process is different. They didn't see that it was enough of an issue with Juliaetta to impose an ammonia limit on you. The compliance schedules for both communities are a little bit the same on, they're the same on temperature. You basically have about another 8-9 years to get things in place for temperature treatment, or to mitigate it in some fashion, to work out something with DEQ. The ammonia limit, as I understand it, Kendrick is on a much shorter compliance schedule for them to meet that. And so it's my understanding that they have been working with their engineer to try and acquire land. Their intent was to send their wastewater flow to this land and discharge it on the land by sprinkling and growing some kind of crop. It is also my understanding that they've been pretty unsuccessful so far at finding land. I think the mayor shared a letter with me that went out to residents of Kendrick, kind of asking them, or in desperation, hey, we need someone to come forward if they have land available. If not, then our options are dwindling and becoming more expensive. So both DEQ and USDA are would like to see if the two communities want to come together and work together on evaluating if there is a joint solution that can serve both communities' interests with respect to the temperature limit and Kendrick's ammonia limit. DEQ has voiced their support for funding the study that would have to be completed to evaluate possible alternatives. And so the other 50% of the amount that would need to be paid toward that would either be split 25% to Kendrick, 25% to Juliaetta, or we could see if USDA Rural Development would have some funding that they could put into that as well. So essentially, we kind of put together two options for you to look at, and we try to provide benefits and challenges for both options. And in no particular order, option number one is proceed as planned. We already have a facility plan that's been approved with DEQ. We already have a plan for the kind of improvements that need to take place at your treatment plant so that you are addressing the things that you need to in your wastewater, and you already have cost estimates for what that work is going to entail. So just kind of looking at the benefits and challenges of this option, the benefit of proceeding with as planned is you already have an approved facility plan, you know what the costs are, you don't have an ammonia limit that has to be addressed like Kendrick does. You'll have more time to address your temperature limit. Things might accelerate in the other option, and we'll talk about that. Your bond has already been passed for this project that you've already been planning on. And so if you proceed with option one, you wouldn't have to go out for another bond election. Or you wouldn't be in danger of having to go out for another bond election. Also, because of Dodd's efforts, you have a CDBG grant that's already been offered to your community for phase one. Because of our help to you on DEQ funding, you have a DEQ offer in front of you with an agreement that you can sign and proceed with this project. Some of the challenges, this might be a missed opportunity to work together with Kendrick. There might be some cost distribution that could result in, we don't know if it would be more or less cost on the city of Juliaetta if you were to work with Kendrick without evaluating it first. And addressing your temperature limit on your own may or may not result in a higher operation and maintenance cost for you if you're not sharing it with anyone. Any questions about option one? Okay, it's a lot of information to digest, so I would also, if you want to take this home after I'm done presenting today and you have some questions, just let me know. And you can send those questions through Wendy, and she knows how to get a hold of me. So, option number two, you could explore joint options with the city of Kendrick. It is my understanding, based on my last conversation with the mayor and Wendy and Justin, that the city of Kendrick has not yet reached out to Juliaetta in any formal fashion asking to come together and work together on a solution. It's only been DEQ and USDA that have been kind of saying, hey, what do you think about the possibility of coming together? So option number two, if you were to proceed with that, it might be you reaching out to the city of Kendrick and saying, hey, we hear that you're having some struggles, do you want to talk about it? And we don't even know if we don't even know if you did approach Kendrick, if they would want to proceed together or not. I don't know that. And I'm not sure that anyone here knows that yet. But the benefits of option number two, your communities are working together on a project. That could be viewed as a benefit. There could be an economy of scale. If for some reason one of the alternatives were to bring their wastewater to your community and send it through your treatment plant, the cost to upsize your facilities is not overly dramatic when you're looking at treatment equipment, and so you know, there might be some economy of scale on that. Of course, you know, if you were to proceed with an option like that, you know, whatever shared components that you'd have to work out some sort of an agreement with that community so that, you know, you're both supporting those pieces of equipment jointly. That might be viewed as a challenge. We do know that one of the benefits is DEQ and USDA are supportive of the communities coming together, but DEQ has also assured myself and others that have talked to them about this topic that they're supportive of Juliaetta no matter what direction you go. So it's not like they're saying, if you choose this option, we're going to have a bad taste in our mouth for your community. That's not at all what they're stating. They're wanting to know what direction you want to go, and then whatever direction you go, they're completely behind you. And then coming together might result in some benefits from operational staff from both communities working a little bit more together. I think that both communities already do, to a certain level, work together and coordinate with each other, but there might be a little bit more of that if you were to do something like this. This could delay your construction though. One of the benefits of the first option is you can go out for construction on at least phase one as soon as next year. And the longer you wait, the more the costs inflate, and you know the costs are usually not going down. That might be a challenge for option number two, because you'd have to go through another. What it would be is it would be a facility plan addendum to your current facility plan that we already did, and it would be an addendum to both your plan and the City of Kendrick's plan, and it would outline options that may or may not address this issue in a joint fashion. And it could be that you're banding together to try and find property together to discharge your wastewater to the same property. It could be that you're treating your effluent together. There's a lot of different ways that it could go. We don't know that without evaluating it. And there's other things here. Another challenge is it may require, and I mentioned this earlier, it may require an additional bond election. If for some reason the alternative that comes out of this analysis results in a higher cost project, then you may have to go back out to your voters and say it's going to be more expensive. The bond that you passed previously was for a project cost of, and correct me if I'm wrong, $5,950,000. And so if for some reason your project cost, and to expand on that, that means that you can accept up to that much in loan funding, but that's not Dodd and I's plan at all. Our plan is to use a much smaller amount of loan funding with as much grant as possible that we can get through various avenues, through the Department of Commerce, which he's already been working on, the Army Corps of Engineers, which he's already been coordinating with them on that as well. And am I missing anybody?
We've got ARPA money, there's additional sources, we're gonna keep scouring these grant sources that may come up. So,
yep, so I've got some bullet points. I don't necessarily have to go through all of them on option 1 and 2, but just kind of your next steps. If you were to proceed with option 1, which is to kind of move ahead as planned, then your next steps are to finish reviewing the DEQ funding agreement and sign it. And then they'll give the green light to proceed with work. The other thing that would need to happen, the contract amendment that we did with you in February, we would actually need to cancel that contract amendment because USDA Rural Development came back with some comments on it, and they asked that we include all of our services from preliminary engineering through final design and bidding and construction phase services. They asked that we do that so that we're kind of locking in the amount that our contract would be to get all the way to the end of construction with you. And so we've done that in a revised contract amendment, which you haven't had a chance to look at yet. And so it would include our services until the project's done. The previous contract amendment was just through the end of final design. So we would have had to have done another contract amendment with you for bidding and construction phase services at the end of final design, but with this you won't have to do that. And the amount that we include in our contract amendment is the amount that's been budgeted all along in the facility plan. So if you look at the facility plan, and I kind of walk you through all the amounts that were programmed for for engineering and inspection and things like that, all the services that we would provide, those amounts would match up exactly. So that's my presentation. What questions do the council have? And of course, you can get back to me on questions later.
What is our time frame as far as deciding which route to take? Like,
As long as you want. I mean, nobody's forcing you to do it right now, but, that things are ready to move ahead on option one if you want to do that. If option two is the direction you want to go, you'll have to decide if you want to reach out to Kendrick and see if they're interested in visiting on this topic, or if they want to go it alone, that may be their response as well. I don't know. I have not personally reached out to them because I didn't feel like it was my place. I felt like that was something that if the city wanted me to reach out, then you could ask me to do that. Or Dodd. Dodd's working with Kendrick as well, right?
So if we were to, you'll see the plan, it talks about, like, if we go with option one, there's the opportunity for cost distribution potentially, but depending on those costs, it may still end up raising just the city of Juliaetta's residence rates to assist Kendrick.
It could. I don't know that.
Okay. There's that possibility.
There's a possibility. I don't want to lie about that. I mean, it could end up being a more expensive project. It could be less expensive. We don't know.
It's kind of expensive.
Yeah.
Yes.
It is.
And then with, like you're talking about with inflation, and if, I don't know wastewater, but if it's anything else like lumber and any other materials, you can find it.
Right.
And you gotta pay for it, so, I don't know. And then, another thing is, we did really good on this last bond election, but that was a lot of work. And then, one, trying to re-educate everybody who doesn't usually come to these meetings and say, hey, appreciate what you did, you might want a little more. I don't know, it seems like the amount of money and cost for that bond election to redo it, and I'm not saying I wanna help Kendrick, it just seems like, this is my opinion, City of Juliaetta, it just seems like, I don't know what the benefit is other than we may lower the cost for our things and we get to say we help Kendrick.
Yeah.
At least that's, and like I said, I'm not trying to sound like a selfish kid, I'm taking my ball and going home. But, like we've found out many times, we have, a fiscal responsibility to our citizens first, in my opinion. And so I can't say that, I don't know if we want to make it more than that, but I can't say that unless there's some, in fact, Kendrick hadn't even reached out to us about it, kind of. Like, I mean, like I said, I know it sounds like probably selfish, but I just don't really see a lot of benefit for us.
Well, if they would have been interested, you thought they would have come and talked to
At
us.
some point, yeah, so.
I know in conversations with Dodd, it sounds like they've been continuing to visit with their consultant engineer. We don't know what they've discussed in those discussions. So I'm not sure where their thought process is right now. If you were to look at option two, you could be delaying construction for phase one till at least late 2022 or early 2023. I would anticipate that the facility plan addendum process would probably take about maybe 4 months or so to get through that process. Yes.
Well, is there a chance that we're gonna incur fines because we're not meeting what we're supposed to be meeting if we delay it that long?
I don't believe so, because you're actively working with DEQ, and they're your permitting authority. And if you weren't doing anything, then yes, maybe you would. But they know that you're actively doing something, no matter which option you proceed with.
Well, do you think our equipment can last that much longer?
I don't know. We may incur, like we just had that expense for the electrical, like we may incur some more repair cost by delaying. I don't know how much more, but it's pretty worn out now.
Yeah, I want to say it's nickel and dime us because it's way more nickel and dimes, but it's,
Yeah,
I mean, it seems like every meeting we have some pump or something, and then everything has to be fabricated, nothing's,
Yeah, it just,
it's, so.
yeah, that would be my concern, is just the repair cost to keep it going longer, rather than just starting construction sometime sooner.
Well, we're behind you no matter what direction you wanna go, and so if the city wants to do option one, we're ready to go. If you wanna do option two, then we'll work with you to head down that road as well. So, I'm not going anywhere.
Any input from,
I got a quick question. So there's no way it would make it cheaper for residents though? Like we still would have to pay what we've already bonded to pay here. There's no way bringing that many more customers would actually bring the cost down?
I don't know. Without evaluating it, my guess is that no, it would not make it less expensive. I mean, you're still gonna have to do what the plan currently is, and, you know, banding together with Kendrick, there might be some cost sharing on the temperature treatment portion of it, but my gut feeling is that you're not gonna be less expensive.
Gotcha.
So by splitting the cost, is that, I know it would be probably the same in cost, but would it be for the same amount of term paying it back, or would it be a shorter term as far as the loan that we have out?
It won't be a shorter term loan. Your loan will ultimately, when you make your first payment on this treatment plant, it will be to USDA, and it will be a 30-year loan. And that won't happen until a year after construction completes. So if you complete construction in 2023 on phase one, you won't make a payment on that until 2024.
But the USDA loan terms are more generous than DEQ. That's a 40-year. DEQ is gonna initially be 30 years.
I just said 30 years. That
Yeah,
was
30
DQ.
years.
When it's 40 years.
RD, Rural Development's gonna buy out the DEQ loan. It's basically interim financing. You're gonna longer term at about the same interest rate. So that's our strategy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, the city can strategically choose to pay that loan off more aggressively. That's up to the council and how you want to proceed over the coming years. There's no penalty for paying it off early.
Okay, quick.
Yes.
So you're
I agree with you
envisioning
guys, I'm
in
not
stage,
for it. I'm for phase one myself.
you're envisioning this option two, that Kendrick would be paying for putting a pipe along the river somewhere to carry the sewage down here to be treated in our plant down here in Juliaetta.
Well, those are things that have to be navigated if you do come together, finding out who's paying for what. I do know that they had, I believe that they passed a bond for another $3.5 million.
Well, they have a committed funding package of about $3.5 million. They passed a bond for $1.5 million. They have a block grant. They have USDA. They have U.S. Army Corps. So they have a set funding package for what they said they're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And that funding is currently planned to be used to buy property and put in the improvements to send their treated wastewater to that field. But if they can't do that and they have to go another direction, I believe their plan is to take that money and put it towards whatever improvements need to take place. And so I would assume that if for some reason they were gonna construct a pipeline to Juliaetta, that they would at least spend the funds on that. And then if they had extra, then you would just have to work out a plan with them to figure out who's paying for what. And, so, yeah.
All the agencies, our strategy, of course, we can't make promises for everything, but is to keep rates affordable. So the bond watching was for almost $6 million. USDA wrote about the loan strategy is to keep rates at comparable levels of 60 to 65, right? Isn't that about right?
It basically,
up to eventually.
that's about where your peers are. And so that's what they're looking at, and they're gonna try their best to provide you enough grant to keep you close to that amount. The amount that your peers are paying.
And it's the same thing, strategy with Kendrick, their rates may not be going as much with their current project, but there would be some kind of equilibrium with all the agencies supporting that, but it's gonna be a process.
So sorry, I don't know if you finished your thought, Counselor.
I think I'm
I wanna make a motion, we go with option one. We've got the
Second.
bond. I think we're risking raising rates for our customers for something we need to know something we wanna do.
Well, Kendrick hasn't reached out to us.
I agree. Well, you second.
I second it.
Okay, so I guess the other last thing that I have, and then I'll turn the time back over to the mayor.
I guess I'm behind time.
So I have our draft contract amendment that the council would like a copy to review. This would replace the February contract amendment. So it's, as I described, the only difference is that it's adding bidding and construction phase and post-construction phase services that USDA is requiring that we include in our contract amendment. We want USDA to be okay with our contract amendment because we don't want them to look at the portion of work that we're doing here and saying that it's not eligible for their funding. Because this needs to be okayed by both DEQ and USDA. So, and the Department of Commerce. I will pass this out. And I'll leave the unstapled copy with Wendy in the event that
Why won't they
decide
make
to-
necessary upgrades to the system along the way?
Sorry?
Why won't they make necessary upgrades to the system along the way? Why do they fix it till
Yeah, what I should have done is brought you the previous contract, but I did not. So if anyone would like
Yeah,
to
that's
see
not
it,
along the way.
I can do that, but in essence, you're replacing the previous one.
Money budgeted for this somewhere along the way, we do upgrades to the system.
So this is gonna fix the plant for a long
You're important too.
Stillman, can you talk about the loan offer?
Yes.
And then the questions and clarifications that the attorney brought up when I sent it?
Yes. Remind me what the questions are, and I will answer them. But I did look over the loan agreement, and it looked appropriate to me. I actually, Charlie Parkins with DEQ sent the agreement to me and had us review it to make sure that it was in line with what the plan was. And we made several adjustments going back and forth to make sure that it was right. One of the bonuses that I don't know if the full council heard on this is that you did get additional principal forgiveness. And so that means essentially more money that you don't have to pay back. I'm trying to remember what the amount was. It went up $45,000.
Yeah, that sounds right.
So it's an additional $45,000 of money that won't have to be paid back at the end. So grant is essentially what it is amounts to. So yeah, I guess on these questions, some of these things you may have already done. I mean, a lot of these terms that they put in these agreements, these are just boilerplate requirements that they put in. And so they just want to make sure that you have a sewer use ordinance. That's the first question that the attorney had. And so I believe that what you already have will already meet that. We can double check that by sending it to DEQ and saying, well, here's what the city has. They just want to make sure that your sewer utility is organized. And it is. It's been around for a long time. So you likely already have everything that you need to meet that. Item number 2, they just want to make sure that you have an operator that is licensed appropriately to operate the facility. And right now you're operating under Frank Grossklose's license, and so you do meet that requirement. And Justin is working towards, yes?
I'm sorry, you can finish your thought.
Oh, okay, sorry. And Justin is working towards getting the appropriate level certifications so that it will transition to operating directly under him. So, yes?
Do you see that having to, a higher class?
No,
Okay.
we're not changing the type of treatment that you're using enough to change classifications. We're just giving you something newer and better. So, good question. Had we gone to like a membrane bioreactor type plant or something like that, then you might have to have a higher level certification. Number 2 is not a concern. Number 3, they just want to make sure you have some kind of a customer service policy, which I believe that you do. I think we already went through some of these iterations. Again, this is like a boilerplate requirements. And so they just want to make sure that you have all of this in place. I believe that you have everything that you would need to meet item number 3 as well. Some of these things we already coordinated with Charlie Parkins before he even sent you this agreement. So that was some of the things that I had already asked you and Bonnie for. Let's see, item number 4, that's something that we need to fill out, so I can fill that out for you. I think we just needed to know what your decision was going to be today. And so I can go ahead and fill that out for you with projected dates for completing. They just want to be able to fill out approximately what month and year you're going to be doing the different phases of the project going forward. And then they'll ask us to update that as we move forward. We've been doing this with DEQ on dozens of other projects, and so we're accustomed to filling that out for you. It's really just a schedule. Item number 5, let's see. Yeah, so item number 5, you've already complied with the contracting requirements. You selected us legally to do the design for you by putting out a request for qualifications way back before we started the planning stage. And so you've done that appropriately. And then of course going forward, you'll follow the law for selecting contractors. We'll work through the bidding process with you to legally award the contract to a contractor. That one, I don't think that there's anything to that there would be of concern. So you're okay as far as that item goes. And if it would be helpful for me to just put together an email response to Ken on each of these.
He's right now.
There he is. How am I doing so far?
Sounds good.
Okay.
I just wanted to make sure the city council and the mayor were aware of the requirements of the agreement. Perfect. Just so that they didn't get blindsided by having to do any of this.
And that's what you're paid for, so you're doing great. Attachment C provides for specific payroll requirements for workers on this project. Yes, so when we put the contract documents together, because of the funding that you're using through DEQ, it will require Davis-Bacon wages for contractors. And so we have a number of inserts from DEQ that we have to put into the bidding documents, and your attorney can review that before it's finalized and put out to bid. But it will require that the contractor pay their employees Davis-Bacon wages. And there are other requirements like the contractor has to use American iron and steel. So they'll have to provide certifications throughout construction showing that the iron and steel products they're using were made in America. These are just requirements that the feds have put on this particular kind of funding.
And Davis-Bacon, that's part of our contract with you, is all that Davis-Bacon labor stuff. We work with you.
He's going to monitor it.
We make sure that all gets covered.
Yep. So the contractor will have to submit payroll records to Dodd, and he'll review them and make sure that they're paying everyone appropriately. Every once in a while when we do monitoring like this, we find out that they paid somebody the wrong rate. And so they have to correct it, and they'll probably have to write another check to the guy that was operating the crane that day so that they're paying him fairly. So it's just part of federal requirements whenever you use federal funding. So you'll be okay on that requirement. Any other questions that you had?
No?
Okay. Anything else, Wendy?
You needed this loan offer to be signed by, was it the end of the month?
Yeah, I guess there is a time limit on that. You're right. Charlie Parkins ask that it be signed and returned to DEQ before June 30th. So had you selected option 2, it would have been coordinating with DEQ to extend this out a little further so that you can get through the process on that. But since you didn't select that, you don't have to worry about that. So that does need to be signed before the end of the month. If you have any other questions that you need resolved before you're ready to sign it, let me know. I'm sure that if you have questions for your attorney, you can ask him as well.
So if you needed more time, I guess, to look at that and consider it, then we have to have a special meeting this month.
I will tell you that this agreement is nothing out of the norm. It's what every community throughout Idaho goes through when they use DEQ funding. So just about everything in your agreement, other than the amounts and the name of the recipient and so forth, is all boilerplate. So everyone's required to follow the same process.
And it was reviewed by him.
I didn't see any problems with the agreement on my review, but I felt that you should be directing the mayor to sign it through a written resolution. So you should have the resolution, and if you approve it tonight, then you'd be directing him to sign the agreement. If you don't approve it tonight, then like Wendy said, you probably have to have a special session to consider the resolution.
But everything looks good?
It looked good to me. I just wanted to make sure you were aware of all those requirements. I figured that you had them all addressed already, and it looked boilerplate to me, but I wanted to make sure that you didn't get blindsided by any of them.
I will add, so for wastewater funding, this current year that they reviewed applications or letters of interest, they only authorized one project. They didn't have very much wastewater funding this year. So you got in on a good year. So
I did have one question though. If the city approves the loan agreement tonight and they start going down that road, if the city of Kendrick approaches it and decides that they want to do a joint project, now I'm sure that would have to go to DEQ for consideration. Is there the possibility that they would agree that they can change course and move in a different direction?
I believe so. I mean, DEQ is the one that was supportive of moving that direction if the city ever did decide to go that way. So maybe I should also clarify that signing this agreement doesn't mean that we're proposing that you start using it on day one. The CDBG grant that Dodd got is actually all for design engineering. And so the plan is to use that funding first. And that funding should be ready to go here in the next month or two. You know about what the timeline is?
We got a document approved tonight,
He's got
and then they haven't got, then they'll get the contract, then but all the costs, everything since award date is acceptable, allowable costs, so.
Perfect.
When we get set up, then we can take care of all that.
So theoretically, if we started tomorrow, that would be eligible. Okay. And that's about minus the amount that is part of their contract. It would be $450,000.
$455 is yours.
$455 would be paying towards design engineering. And then once those funds are completely used, then you can switch over to start using DEQ. So we wouldn't even anticipate using DEQ funding until sometime early next year.
So I just wanted to comment, since there is the possibility Kendrick might come forward and propose some joint project, I don't have a strong opinion on it, but I just want to make sure you're aware that generally moving waste from one municipality to another is an extremely touchy issue, politically and legally. So it's something you want to keep in the back of your mind. I'm not opposed to it. Ultimately, it may be the smartest thing to do for the two communities from a technical and environmental point of view. But the Juliaetta folks are not going to want Kendrick waste coming here, I would predict.
Some of the things I could say. We got a letter from DEQ saying that, let's see. Fiscal year 2022 state wastewater planning grant priority list, we were not included in that funding?
That's for the collection facility plan.
Uh-huh.
Last year we talked about having us help you submit a letter of interest to do the next step in evaluating your sewer lines and manholes.
Okay, so this doesn't necessarily have to do with our current
Has
project.
nothing to do with the treatment plant. You were pretty close to the cut line, and so if the city wanted to continue to pursue that avenue, if that is something that we could submit a letter of interest again in January. But DEQ really wants you to take that next step on evaluating your sewer system because there is more to be done there. So, not really a bad thing that you didn't get it this year because you've already got enough on your plate, so.
Sounds like most of this stuff is things that should have been maintained and kept up along the way instead of just getting hammered with it all at once. But
Not necessarily. It was built all at about the same time. And so you're just getting to the point where it's at that age. It's like that car that just got over 230,000 miles and it's 20 years old and it's time. So that's really the state of your sewer system. I don't think that it's been a result of operators not operating it properly. They've gotten a lot of life out of it. And,
well, it's not a lack of operation, it's upkeep and, moving forward, making things work better as things progress and, you figure something out, you fix it. You don't just wait and stockpile all of it and fix it at once, that's just a bad plan.
I mean, ideally, if a community can put away enough money over a long enough period of time, you can pay for money, but pay for it with cash, but that is not the case with small communities. You guys are not the only ones that are facing situations like this. It's happening all across the state. It's just not easy to take care of it in any other way than the way we're doing it now for a small community. Even Lewiston, we're the engineers for the Lewiston's wastewater treatment plant, and they tried the pay-as-you-go method and to upkeep it as much as they could, but they couldn't keep up with it. And it finally got to the point that they had to do a massive project, and that project's underway right now. It's about a $34 million upgrade to their wastewater plant because they just couldn't keep up with it by doing smaller projects every year. So it's not unusual for a small community to have to do something like this once every 30 years. Right, yeah, we've been 45 years is a pretty good stretch.
So do we need a motion if we're going to pass the resolution, or does it have to be read by title only? I can't remember if that's an ordinance or resolution.
That's an ordinance. If you want me to read it by the title, I'll certainly read it to you.
I think do we have to read it? Okay. I move to pass resolution 2021-04.
A second.
Motion and a second.
I'll second.
All in favor? Passes.
Thank you, council. So on my agenda tonight, we have there's a 3-page form, determination of exemption or determination of category of exclusion. And this is an environmental review for this project. This is like the thinnest environmental review you're ever going to see. That's because this is an engineering only block grant, as Stillman mentioned, it's paying for his services and our services. So this is just saying that there's no adverse environmental impact due to the project because it's paying for the services. So I just need a motion and have everyone here sign this. And once this is complete, we send it to Commerce and they're going to send you a contract.
Okay, I'll make a motion to accept the grant administration contract with CEDA and council.
Oh,
No,
explain
we're
the wrong
talking,
thing, I'm sorry.
which one am I doing, sorry?
I didn't look at the agenda, maybe that was first.
Oh, the environmental review?
Yeah.
Okay, the motion to accept the environmental review.
I'll second it.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor? Passes.
Sorry, I wasn't reading the right one.
Vicki, you seconded?
Yeah.
So if you sign it, you can scan that to me or get me a copy. Okay, the second item is the grant administration contract, or project administration contract, and this is customary with the block grant. And in this case, the DEQ funds, and this is saying that CEDA works as your administrator for the grant funds as well as the DEQ. And it's because there's a two-phase project, we have a block grant essentially in the first phase. We may be able to apply for another block grant. If we spend it down, we can get to that point. We're gonna have the DEQ funds through the life of the project. So this contract is for us to work directly with the city, interface with the engineer on things like pay requests, interaction with the federal agencies. There are certain HUD requirements, like with ADA and fair housing. There's some things we need to go through that I'll work with the city on. Contract documents that require the things we talked about earlier, like the Davis-Bacon, the labor management. So that's what this contract is about.
And Ken has reviewed that contract also.
That was my question. And it looks good.
Well, I only got it this afternoon, I did a quick review on it, and my response was that I haven't done a careful review to make sure that it complies with all the federal requirements, but at least as a standalone contract, I didn't see any problems with it.
This is basically just saying we're giving you, you're gonna be the grant administrator, kinda.
Right,
You're doing all that, you're just like, this makes it official.
We're the, sorry?
I mean, because of what you've been doing, this is just makes it official for this one.
Yeah, we're continuing to be your city representative. We're making sure that all the processing, paperwork to help Bonnie and Wendy, ease the load on them. Working with Stillman on his invoices will come to me and I'll review it. He approves the contractors. I'll put all that, package it all up so it can go through Bonnie and Wendy. And it's paid for by block grant, so that's grant funds and the DEQ. So you can think about DEQ principal forgiveness, essentially it's being paid through granted funds.
This, where it's not to exceed the 80,000, that's all.
That's correct, yeah, until the project's done, so.
Make a motion to accept the grant administration contract with CEDA.
Second.
All in favor? Passes.
And I have a signed copy that Christine Fry signed, so we're good. Awesome, thank you.
Before we move on, will council be signing the amendment that Stillman talked about tonight?
We kind of said there was two, there's the review of the amendment that
That he just gave
we
us.
needed to, we either have to approve it tonight or have a special meeting that's separate than the loan amount one, so, we need to decide if we're going to approve this tonight or have a special meeting.
I
Get it done by
think
next week.
we should vote.
So,
Go for it, Jeff.
and Ken, this one you said you reviewed and it looks okay?
Wendy, is that the one you sent
The
me this
amendment.
afternoon?
No, because I didn't get
He
that until
has,
just now.
Ken has not seen
You have
this
not seen
yet.
that one?
I just gave him a copy, so.
So should we wait just to have that and review it?
And this one has to be the one that's done by the end of the month, correct? This is the one that has to
No, our agreement doesn't have to be done by the end of the month, but, the DEQ one does.
And I think that's the one they've approved already.
That's the one that you already
Okay, so we're good
approved.
until we can do
So
this
if
one
we
next
put this
month.
on July's agenda, is that?
Yeah, it's just a matter of when you would like us to get started.
Oh.
So if you wait till then we won't get started until after that meeting.
Yeah, we need to let him read it.
Yep.
Do you need a motion just to the table or just
We'll just table it.
let the smart people look at it?
Let the smart people look
So you'll email it to me and then, or you're wanting me to do a review?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I need to email him the original contract. Apparently I didn't bring the right copy with me. So I'll do that.
Yeah,
Mike,
you're up, Mike.
Nope. Do I have to stand up here? Is that what we're doing? Well, I just got a couple things. One of them is pretty easy to do, what I imagine, is the speed limit down by the baseball field. I think we need to move that sign, the 50-mile-an-hour sign, down by the fire station. I just live right across the road, and there's kids down there all the time, and that's just,
We don't have anything to say about that, that's all the state environmental.
okay, well, who talks to them? Is that something that I need to do, or?
we've talked to the state of Idaho
For
many, many,
years,
many a
years.
time, many a
Yeah.
year, and it does not. They're the bosses. And
You can call the Idaho Transportation Department and file a complaint.
Move the sign. Seems pretty easy to me.
It seems easy, but it is not.
It's not, it's not.
Well, we looked at it maybe a while ago.
Years ago.
So I've got another thing is, it's from my flood that I had at my house, like I believe last September. There were some things that maybe I didn't know as far as a tort claim, that I'm not familiar with it. So I received that tort claim, and I think it was like in January or February, maybe March even. And the incident happened in September, and if you have, I don't know how long to turn it in, it seems like I got it like 5 months too late or something, and I didn't even know that there was a time limit on filling it out. And I didn't know who to charge with that. Is that something I'm supposed to know, or
I don't even know what you're talking about.
nobody knows what I'm about? Okay.
I mean, I know that you have a water heater that had an issue, that there was, what was that?
It was about 190 pounds of water pressure in my house.
But I don't remember, I don't know anything about a tort claim. I don't know anything about those.
We had a few other ones.
Right, but I don't know, like when they're supposed to be delivered, I don't know any of that, so.
Okay, so it goes through iPrint. When we had that pressure back up, there was some of the houses didn't have a, what is it called, that
The pressure.
valve? So they had damage. So you needed to fill out a tort. And so I gave Justin and Josh the tort claims to give to the people and have them fill it out. So I had one who filled it out and got her claim taken care of. Mike, we paid for the water heater, what else?
Electrical upgrade to the breaker box.
Yeah.
And we put a pressure reducing valve in under the house, but Mike's heating and plumbing.
Right, and iCrip reimbursed us for those claims, and that the city had paid for. And I even have my email where I said I haven't received anything further from him, and that was in February 10th.
So from what I'm hearing from him, the tort claim you're saying has to be turned in. Does it have a timeline when it has to be turned in?
Yes, and, well, all the claims,
And do you
every
know-
claim has to, is.
Right, and so when was the tort claim or paper, whatever, given to him to fill out?
That was given to him probably in September, because it happened at the end of August. No, you received to some taped to your door, And Justin even,
Josh and I drove down and gave you one inside the box
Yeah.
when you were working down there.
Yeah, that was in like February, when I got the first one, and I had you bring me one after it was already, I guess, too late, and like, is that a common practice that you don't tell people, hey, you have this much time to do it, and
I didn't know that there was a specific
that was
time,
an extreme
so.
T-bone, and I thought to myself, well, you know what, small town, I'll just take care of it myself, I'll turn it into my insurance, and I did, and it was a lot of money,
Yeah.
and I'm getting bills still, and you want me to turn in paperwork on something that I don't even have all the bills for, and to boot,
And we don't have
and I'm not
anything to
even-
do with it, that's why we have insurance with iCramp. You'll have to go through iCramp
Well,
to,
there's gotta be, then something needs to be set up, like, when something like this happens, okay, you take this paper that you have and say, okay, you've got this much time to fill it out at the time when this happens, not, it happened in September and I got paid for February.
right,
And then I had like 30 days and I didn't even know that I still at that point didn't know that I only had X amount of time to fill it out.
right.
So, I mean, the misinformation is, yeah, just, you know, I'm not, I didn't even ask for a bunch. What I said was,
Yeah.
I've taken care of this, my insurance rate's gone up, and I
Right.
didn't ask them to work myself,
Yeah.
and,
But all I can do
Didn't
is send it to iCrimp, and they're the ones that make the decision,
okay,
so.
so they made the decision
And we
based on.
did give it to Josh and Justin to give to you.
What are you
Yeah.
asking for tonight, Mike?
Well, basically, the only thing that I was asking for is like, I'm out of my pocket a lot of money, and my insurance premium is going up because I did this through insurance. What I should have done in the beginning was said, here you go, City of Juliaetta, take care of it. That's what I should have done, but I didn't. And so I'm still getting a bill from CTR, and that, you know what, of all the money that I paid it, and something that was not my fault, it should have been whoever was digging the fiber optic lines, that's who should have gotten it. They're the ones that should have paid for all of it, but they've been wrong. But I'm still getting a bill from CTR, and I paid a ton of them out of my own pocket already, and done a lot of work. And, you know, with nothing but, hey, yeah, will you guys help me out, take care of the CTR bill, and I'm out about $14,000 already for something that's totally not my fault. And I come in and I say, hey, will you guys take care of this? And, no, too late, you didn't fill it out in time. So, okay, well, I didn't know there was time on it, first of all, and I didn't get it until, you say September, but I didn't get it in September. I didn't get it until about February. Maybe there should be a thing like, okay, sign here, you got this, and you should inform people that you have this much time to fill this out, otherwise you're gonna take it in shorts. I think this is being done all wrong, but maybe that's just me.
Has anything been submitted to iCrimp yet?
Yeah, they sent me an email saying that, sorry, you didn't fill it out in time.
I have one.
Why don't I explain the way this works under Idaho law? And then, so just hear me out before you react to what I say. Because I'm not trying to turn the city against you in any way, okay? Purpose of a tort claim is to comply with Idaho law. Idaho law says that you cannot sue an Idaho municipality unless you give it a tort claim notice within 6 months of the injury. And that's a prerequisite. If you don't give the tort claim notice, if you don't serve it on the municipality within that period of time, then the statute of limitations is expired. You can't you can't initiate a lawsuit against the municipality. Now, iCramp, which is a common fund amongst, I don't think it's all of the municipalities, but most of them, the municipalities have gotten together as a cost-sharing measure to deal with unusual costs to the cities, something like this. And so iCramp has a policy that it may or may not honor the claim. If they think that the claim is legitimate, then they may pay it out, as it sounds like it did with other residents who submitted it within that 6-month period. They could have disputed it though, and they could have said, we don't agree to pay this, And then those individuals' choice would be to initiate a lawsuit against the municipality. They have the legal right to do that because they gave the tort claim notice within the period of time. So a tort claim notice has no legal significance except it allows the person to bring a legal action as long as it's provided within the required period of time. So there's no requirement on the city to tell anybody, if you potentially want to sue us, you have to fill this out.
No, I didn't want to sue anybody. All I wanted was, I basically took care of the whole thing by myself.
Right.
And then it gets to the end, I'm getting hit with other stuff, and I just,
So what the tort claim does is it keeps the door open if you have to sue the municipality, but also it presents the claim to ICRAM, and then if they consider it a legitimate claim, then they'll typically pay on it. So it sounds like they paid on probably all of them that were presented to it within the period of time. Not all
They
of
only
them.
paid 1 out of 3. The other person didn't turn their form in on time either.
But they did reimburse us for those initial costs for the water heater and the
Yeah.
electric and so forth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we did get reimbursed for what the city, took care of immediately because you needed a water heater. So,
And so the reason I explain all this is because it sounds like Mr. Burrow, you're Mr. Burrows?
Yeah.
It sounds like Mr. Burrows no longer has the legal right to bring an action against Juliaetta for the damages that he incurred. But that doesn't necessarily mean that Juliaetta can't or shouldn't reimburse him for the costs. It can pay for some or all of the costs. But Juliaetta, at this point, is safe from a lawsuit from Mr. Burrows over this incident. That's all it means. Beyond that, I can't tell you whether you should pay the cost. That's a decision for those of you who would consider that. So does that all make sense? It's a little complicated, but I think individuals think that presenting the tort claim notice to ICRAM means they automatically get paid, but that's not necessarily true. People also think that the city should make sure that individuals know how and when they need to file these tort claim notices, but that would be similar, like if I backed into your vehicle out here in the parking lot, and then I said to you, make sure you sue me within the 5 years you've got, because if you don't, then you're out of luck.
Well, see, but that's two people that are on a normal thinking page, we'd exchange insurance and be taken care of, like, that's,
Right, but,
a common thing.
yeah, and my point only is in response to your comment that the municipality should have told you to file it. Well, maybe yes, maybe no, but whether you knew or not when it was due, the law imposed that requirement on you. So now it's up to the city.
Okay, so I put this in a moral code me. If I was in anybody's position that knew about this, and this happened to their property, I would then tell them, hey, this is what you need to do. This is the right thing to do. You need to do this, or otherwise nothing's going to happen. And if it would have happened to somebody else's property, and they knew about it, they'd been on it right away. It would have been taken care of without a doubt. And that's what is frustrating to me, is that, like, did somebody lose a moral code around here? Or, that's my question,
And I understand where you're coming from.
It's frustrating as fuck.
And I have no firsthand knowledge as to when the notice was given to you. My only point is that the city had no legal obligation to even give you the notice. The fact that they did that was a service that the city did, and that's a good thing, and that's what I think they should be doing, but they weren't legally obligated to do it. But it doesn't mean that the city shouldn't necessarily pony up some of the costs. If the city was at fault, then the city might decide that it does want to pay some or all of the costs. That's your decision.
And it wasn't even necessarily the city, it was the people that were digging all these fiber optic lines.
Well,
I mean, I changed filters in my refrigerator, I had to take my whole dishwasher apart, every one of my faucets, my meter was plugged with rocks. You had to put a new meter in it.
It's two separate issues. So the fiber company digging was it was January 2020, and right in there. They did hit the line on Old Main twice.
February 6th was the date.
It did cause rocks and dirt and stuff to get into your meter. We did change the meter. But that's a separate issue than the high pressure event. The high pressure event was the city's PRV valve failing. And when I measured the pressure at your house, it was off the meter. It was so high, it was off the meter. So I knew something was wrong. And then I heard from the post office,
Don't look at me.
not you,
Don't look at me, Jody.
Jody, that other people in town were having high pressure as well. I went to Logan's house, I went to Janet's house, that's when we discovered that there was something wrong. And I asked Frank, what could it be, and he said, it's one of our valves, so we started looking at them, and then we found one that failed, so. So that it's just two separate
It
things.
was the people that were digging the fiber optic line, that's how it was passed off to me, so.
Yeah, no, it was two kind of separate things.
And the city did take care of it. I mean, within 24 hours, you had a new water heater, and then once you fixed your flooring, or the floor got fixed, we had it reinstalled. So, you know, we did take care of you, and then we turned that claim in, but I know we gave you a tort. Just because I don't have a signed piece of paper that says that you received it, doesn't mean that you didn't get it. And also too, with iCrimp, like with Janet, when she got her claim taken care of, we had an estimator come out before anything got fixed, so that they could see the damage and everything, and then she got reimbursed for an estimate. Now, if she has to pay a little more, I don't know, but she got everything taken care of. So with you fixed everything, so we don't know how much real damage was done, and I'm not saying that you're lying, but I'm just saying, iCrimp would have to send an estimator to find out how much damage was actually there and how much it would cost.
Okay.
Because that's all I'm saying, that's why we have insurance.
If you need that, I have insurance as well, and I turned it into my insurance, so I
Right.
can give you that if that's something you need.
Well, if you can try, I can't
So
make
are
those
you-
decisions.
Are you asking for the city to pay you money?
No, well, I'm asking the city to pay CTR, the people that came in and dried all the water and put their fans in there for I don't
So
know
it
how.
sounds like what we would need you to do is bring in that bill.
I started to give it to her already.
Yeah,
Okay.
I have.
And we need to give it, so we can review it and decide, is this, the city council, is this something we're going to pay, is it something we'll split? I mean, if that's what it's coming down to, is you're just asking us to help pay a bill. I mean, I get your frustration with everything else, but like I'm saying, whether you did a tort or not, we can still pay if we feel that we need to. But I mean, I don't know how much it's gonna be, you know, that's what you know, so if you're asking us to pay a bill, then that's something we would need to review as a city council or.
But did your insurance pay anything?
Yeah, my insurance paid some of it, but they paid a depreciated value of something, and then, you know, whatever that is, who knows? I don't know. I don't know how it's supposed to work. First time I've ever done anything like this in my life. I just fixed it myself, so it was right. But there are certain things I couldn't do. Plumbing, you can't do that. Otherwise, you have to have a certified plumber. You know, I had to redo a whole bathroom.
So, Bonnie,
And supposedly my insurance adjuster said that for me to not pay that bill because it was taken care of by my insurance. I've been trying to figure it out, and they don't know if they paid it or not. I keep getting a bill and it's gonna go to
It
collection.
surprises me that your insurance didn't pay for it all, because, you know, I had a flood in my kitchen last year as well, and they paid for everything. So, yeah, so I'm surprised that they didn't pay for the CTR and everything.
That's kind of what I thought, but I'm still getting billed for them, so.
so where is the CTR bill? This one here for the $2,045?
I believe so.
Yeah, I
You
think
can-
that's
yeah.
making restoration.
And I tried to call them on the phone, and they said that my insurance may have mailed a check to Boise, or I guess they've got another office somewhere in Washington, and you'd think that they would, you know, I mean, how hard is it to figure out? I figure it's paid on the claim number or whatever, but I continue to get bills, you know.
But your insurance agent should take care of it for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know what, my insurance agent is, I don't know where, I mean.
Did you have any pictures or anything from your estimate when it was done of all the damage? Because you said you had to do your kitchen and your bathroom?
Well, so I did the laundry room and the whole bathroom, and you can't replace the subfloor without tearing out bathtubs and stuff. And then when you tear them out, you're gonna ruin them.
So this was all because of the pressure valve that burst or had an
The
issue?
hot water heater overflowed and, yeah, because of the pressure, and then it went onto the floor.
Okay,
Or
so
it
the
went
hot,
up the walls or in the closet, it was in a closet, right?
Yeah, it was in a wall.
Your closet's in the middle of your, kind of in the middle of your house. So I don't know.
so the hot water heater was replaced, and you said something about flooring was replaced right away, Bonnie?
No, no, as soon as they got that in.
The
Oh, as soon
piano-
as you got that in, then you could do flooring.
Yeah.
So,
Because it
I
says
just
after
figured
the
the building,
flooring
I
is done,
remember-
it will come back and put in a bright spot. They are also planning on installing a pressure reducing valve, and upgrade the wire from the breaker box to the heater. Because this is the text from Justin.
Mike's plumbing is the one that did the
Yeah.
estimate.
Yeah.
Mike's plumbing.
because the only thing I remember when we had that happen last year was all those valves, and then all of a sudden we had Janet's claim, and then, I mean, I don't really remember a whole bunch coming back to us as far as all this damage. I thought once that was replaced, I thought that was the last of the damage.
There were,
I had no idea that it was so
I
extreme.
think there were 3 people that we heard of, 3 houses that we heard of. Janet's, which was all taken care of because she was all over it, on top of it. And then another guy that we never really heard anything from, and then Mike.
But she did have to move out of her house at her own expense, right? Like,
She didn't have to, at her own expense, she just told iCrimp that she would. I have her final letter and all her backup here to if you want to see that. So.
Well, I think it's gonna be gone over, not just right here. I think it has to be gone over where you can look at things and think about what all this is and.
I would like to find out if your insurance company's actually gonna step up and pay for everything. I don't know why they haven't, I would like to see something from them myself.
So they paid for most of the flooring and most of the plumbing, but
But usually it's just your deductible that you'd have to pay, I don't understand why they're not paying for all of it.
Deductible.
so this is what they did. They estimated an amount that it would cost to fix it, and then minus I don't know how they came up with their number. And so they gave me the number, the money that it takes, that they thought it would take to fix it, and then they're gonna get it fixed, and that's not how much it costs.
Right, well, I'm just going off kind of what, I went
That's
through
why I
a
ended up
similar
doing-
situation, and mine was ballooned bigger than that. They paid, I mean, mine was $42,000 in damage. They paid for all of that, and that was with other people doing it too, and there was no
I
question.
think I ended up getting like $8,000 or $9,000 from them, that was covered, yeah.
So do you have the original estimate from CTR that came in and pictures of the damage?
I don't know.
Can you get that to us, and then a letter from your insurance agency saying that they're not going to pay for it, or what their thoughts are, so we have that to go over?
I've been trying to get them somebody to take care of that, because I mean, pretty quick, and I just, what I should have done was in the beginning said, hey, things really are, I didn't cause this. The damages are definitely caused by like almost 200 pounds of water in my house, so
Right.
that's what I should have done, but.
Well, do you need,
Should we table this until July and?
Yeah, we
we
can
can
table it.
gather this stuff?
But if you get us that information, then we'll table it for July. So if you can try to get that as much as you can from your insurance company and CTR about the estimate, the original estimate. And pictures.
I think I have some stuff from CTR, but as far as with the manager, I don't do that.
We've got a month to dig, so we'll table it till next month.
Your insurance agent might be able to help you pull this stuff together as well.
Yeah.
because they should have paperwork.
Mhm.
Who do you have your insurance with?
Travelers, I think. That's who it is.
July 13th.
So there isn't a local, anybody that you can contact?
I think it's in Spokane, maybe.
Should be able to call up there.
that work?
Hey Justin, sorry to get angry sometimes, but
Huh?
I said I apologize that I get angry sometimes.
Well, it just was,
Yeah.
you literally, the timing was,
Yeah.
you got off the phone with her, and I grabbed the second I walked in the door, so.
Yeah,
So-
well, and it wouldn't be that bad, but I didn't figure it was gonna cost me that much in my pocket.
Well, and I didn't know the first time we talked that it was a city issue. Like, it was after hearing from other people that all of a sudden it turns into, a thing. So,
I'm not trying to get free money from somebody for nothing.
yeah.
I worked my dick off for what I got, and I was just trying to help the city out, I take care of myself, and if I can work out, I get my wallet.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, maybe it wasn't very muffable.
I'm just curious what has been discussed and decided as far as out my way. In the last special meeting that we had, May 18th, that Jim kind of conducted, I was a little bit confused about why that was that way. It was a public meeting, but yet he was in charge of it. But there was a lot of questions that got raised, and we were gonna be told, and we don't really have anything, so. Different people wanted to know, they were gonna be here tonight, evidently something happened and they weren't, but anyhow, do we have any information, do we know anything?
I can't get to the courthouse.
I'm sorry, what?
We're still researching different things, that's why there was nothing on the agenda to
So,
begin with.
there's been lots of small town talk, and I've heard that some things have come to light and then changed, and so, I mean, I'd like to hear what's been going on, if there has been
What do
anything.
you hear?
Huh?
What do you hear? We
Well,
have, we
there's-
haven't had a council meeting, so nothing has changed between then and now.
I'm not sure.
Nothing has happened.
No,
I'm just here.
The surveyor hasn't been contacted, none of that stuff's
we're
been done?
doing research to try to figure different things out as far as who owns what up there on Old Main and so forth, but there's been no determination about anything yet.
Basically, we're trying to find where the right-of-way starts and Old Main ends. So that line right there, we need to find that first.
And I'm
We
curious
also
what-
need to contact the surveyor because myself and Wendy and anybody else does not know how to write out that easement section of that road that you want us to do an easement for, except for a surveyor. Because it goes northeast by quarter by 295 feet or whatever, I don't understand that lingo, and I wanna make sure it's printed correctly. But Terry also has to go out there and he has to figure it out,
Okay, so
and things like
has
that.
that been set up, I guess?
I have emailed him and I've contacted him, and he said he is still working on it. But you also have to understand that when we had that special meeting, so that was in between, it's only been a couple of weeks. We only work Monday through Wednesday.
Well, there had been a city council meeting on May 11th, and 1 week later, the special meeting. So for some reason, I was at that meeting May 11th, it ended without incident, and then all of a sudden we hear that there's this special meeting, and we all get called to it, and we're not quite sure because that whole meeting just was kind of a puzzle to all of us.
It was all about the water.
The mayor called the special meeting so council could make the determination on whether the water meter should be moved. And we also thought it would be a nice time for everyone to be there, and maybe Jim could talk about what he was thinking, maybe we could clear the air. I don't know, I was hoping just to sort of settle the dust. But as far as council was concerned, all they were deciding on was moving that meter or not, and that's what they did. And nothing has been decided since then because there hasn't been another meeting. So that's why, other than when you asked to be on the agenda, there's nothing else on the agenda about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're hoping that by in July, we'll have that easement thing done, and done properly, so.
the easement on the agenda was mentioned as a utility easement. That's not what I offered.
Okay, what were you offering? Because you didn't
Water
talk to
easement.
anybody at City Hall.
I did. I
At
had,
City Hall. You need
I
to.
talked to Dick and I had Josh there as a witness. I asked him to
If you
please
could
stay.
talk to us though, since we're the ones that sort of facilitate the paperwork and.
I'll be glad to tell you.
So what is it that you're
Water
offering?
easement only, and that's because it's already there anyhow.
Okay, what about the water easement? What are you saying?
I don't want to have any part with any of it because of his involvement in what's going on up there. And I offered to Dick the exact same thing that everybody else got, that I did not get.
What is it? Explain
An
it to
easement
me.
for the water that is on my property.
So you're talking about the line that was run in 2004.
Yes,
So from what I understood is that there wasn't an easement at that time.
excuse me,
There was, just let me finish.
I'm asking-
There was an easement at that time, but they ran into some sort of something when they were laying the pipe. And so they asked for permission to deviate from the easement or the planned how the line was gonna go.
Yes.
And you gave the permission.
Yes,
So what you are asking for is for that deviation to be
official,
official,
yes.
and that's all?
Water easement only.
Okay, and,
Okay.
and then will that satisfy everything that's going on?
No, not even close, but that's all I want from you guys.
Okay.
But in that same meeting, there were several things that got brought up. And Matt Anderson's wife, Jessica, asked if the ordinances were gonna be followed, and she never got an answer
What ordinances?
as far as subdividing out there.
Subdivision isn't on the table because he hasn't asked for anything yet.
That was in that meeting, though, that those
He's
things were.
talked about it, and you can talk about it, I can talk about it, everybody can talk about it, but until the paperwork is filed and it goes through planning and zoning, it's not happening. It's just people talking about things.
Okay.
So nobody can speak about a subdivision because it can't be decided.
Okay, I guess the reason I'm wondering is because it was said that to be subdivided, your property had to open onto a city road. It's my understanding that he's bringing that city road, or that private road, up to city code to be turned over. In the ordinance, it states that that road needs to have an engineer.
Okay.
So we were wondering if that was going to happen.
I don't
That-
know, because
well-
it hasn't, it's
It
not a
isn't
thing
until
yet.
he has to talk to the city about it, and then it'll happen. Yeah. Because so far, he's just on private land, messing around, doing what he wants in his private land.
Not just his private land, but
What, he's supposed to be just in his private land.
there you go.
We do have a transportation engineer, so if it ever comes to that, they're on retainer, I guess, or
Okay.
they're on file, so.
So that will be followed?
Well, I can't say it will be followed, but I'm just saying that we have an engineer.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
The best.
Is that everything?
Yes, thank you.
I think do you want me to stay for any of the other issues? It doesn't look like there's any legal
I
issues.
think we just have the dust to settle
Clear
the
the
dust.
Yeah. Now that the dust is settled, we're
You
gonna
don't
talk
want
about
to
the
hear
dust.
from me about dust.
Okay.
Well, thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Oh,
You're your
appreciate it.
transportation engineer.
Oh, no,
Welcome.
I can answer a question on that if you want me to.
Thank you.
So, in my experience working as a city engineer for several communities, we typically don't design a private road for those communities for that private entity. Usually that private entity hires their own engineer to design a road that meets the city's requirements, and then that plan that is stamped by that engineer is submitted to your engineer and reviewed. So your engineer is only reviewing it, not designing it. It's a little backwards if you're doing work for the developer, because then it gets kind of sticky. You don't want to be in the business of providing a design for a developer. Myself, having worked for some developers in the past, I'm not I'm not a huge fan of being on that side of it, when I'm on the city side of it usually. It's kind of different mindsets and different types of engineers, in my book. But anyhow, that's typically how you would do it. So I would recommend that you find a low overhead engineer that knows what they're doing,
And
so
if
that it
they
doesn't
don't,
cost you too much.
and if they don't,
Well, you want to find somebody that's done it before.
But we wouldn't do it because we aren't.
He's doing it.
Somebody else, Mr. Smith is one putting the road in, so he's the one that would need to.
Is he a licensed engineer?
No, I'm saying he would need to contract an engineer to
Yes.
do it for himself.
the
Yes, he would.
ordinance reads at the city's expense if the city was gonna do it.
If the city is going to do it, but typically I don't see cities taking on that project themselves. It's like they're taking on the risk, and they don't want to be in that business. They want the developer to bring it up to their standards so that they are willing to take it over and go to the expense of operating and maintaining that road in the future.
Yes, so in the event that he turns this over to the city, it would be inspected, looked
So-
over by the city's engineer?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I want
Yes,
to know.
yeah, so I guess, let's suppose that he has it designed by a licensed engineer, it's submitted for review, the city engineer reviews it, says it looks good, looks like they followed all the requirements, and so they approve the plans, and then they can proceed to construct it per those plans. The city will then usually have their engineer inspect the final result to see if it was constructed per plans, and then provide a recommendation to the council to accept those improvements. So we would want to, as the city's engineer, make sure that they are only accepting quality work. Because obviously they don't want to accept something that was not constructed very well.
If there was no plan submitted to the city to be